drew you to the role, Emily? How did you end up there?
Well, I was a women's studies student at UBC at the time, and so I really liked the coming of age from a female perspective, because I hadn't seen a lot of films that were about adolescence and sexuality from the girl's point of view. And I love the bond between sisters. Yeah, it's a movie about friendship, but I love how it uses fantasy to sort of tell a truth that would be hard to tell, just telling a more conventional sort of coming of age story to portray a psychological truth.
And when you were in the writing stage, John, with Karen, what were you aiming for?
What was I aiming for?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, well, sure, okay. What was I aiming for? I was aiming for something that was, that I hadn't seen before, that sort of transcended genre, was a bit of a genre mashup, was taking a fairly well-known genre trope and trying to kind of make it into something that I hadn't, that was new and fresh, and then trying to kind of build it around these female characters who I had always kind of wanted to see but had never seen before. And working with Karen on the script, I guess in the early days, I wanted to make a transformation movie. There was a bunch of things that I had in my brain, but I liked just the story of these two sticky sort of Edward Gorey girls that lived in the suburbs, and working with Karen on the script, I guess in the early days, I wanted to make a transformation movie. There was a bunch of things that I had in my brain, but I liked just the story of these two sticky sort of Edward Gorey girls that lived in the suburbs, and I don't know. The more Karen and I worked on the script, the more we sort of began to draw all these comparisons and adolescents, female adolescents. Certainly Karen was invaluable because she drew a lot from her own experience, and it was just really interesting for kind of coming to these interesting conclusions, like just even drawing the menstrual cycles with lunar cycles. It was all these things that we kind of we had all these like little mini eureka moments, and we're like, I think at the end of the day, we just really wanted to build a nice, not nice, it's because it's not really nice. Nice. What do I say? It's a kind of a very layered, complex horror film that was intelligent and smart and raw and visceral and didn't back down and didn't wuss out. Right? That was really important to me.
Any questions from the audience? Come on.
How old were you when you were playing that role? Because you said you were a women's studies student, so you were older than the character, right?
Yeah, I was 22.
22. Okay. Hi. Go back there.
Hey, I just had a question in regards to the werewolf aspect of this film. Did you originally write it with the rules in mind, and then you said fuck the rules, kind of to the Hollywood tropes of werewolves?
Nice. Yeah, I think because I hadn't seen at the time the only really half-decent werewolf movie was American Werewolf in London, as far as I was concerned. And that one was, the thing I liked about that was the sense of humor that it had. It had a good sense of humor, and I enjoyed that. But really, when I was looking at this, I was kind of going, werewolf movies are cheesy. So it was really, it was about like trying to figure out what our rules would be. So I found inspiration more in David Cronenberg than I found in anything else. I feel like in movies like Dead Ringers or The Fly, or even movies like Carrie, Jackson film, Heavenly Creatures. I don't know if kind of many people have seen that. That was an inspiration as well. There's a bunch of things back in that era, I think, that we were thinking about. And really it was kind of like just wanting to follow certain signposts of the genre and then depart as much as we could so that we could make this our own. And I think that one of the things really that was unique about it was the fact that the transformation is not, I really disliked the mythological, magical aspects of the werewolf. So I wanted to bring kind of science and biology to it. So it wasn't going to be like the moon pops out and then you run around, kill a bunch of shit, and then turn back to normal. It was going to be a very slow, steady transformation that there was no return from. And that to me made more sense as a kind of a virus or as something biological that we might find in the real world. So I don't know, I just kind of hadn't seen that before, so we used some Hollywood rules just because it's a werewolf movie, and then we made up our own.
And grounding that transformation in science makes it scarier to me too, because then it's not so silly, waiting for the moon to come out, etc. Okay, other questions? Maybe down here. I think you were waiting.
First off, just thanks for making the movies. They were kind of the soundtrack to my high school. So, and I mean, I know that it's been a long time and everything, but looking back, have you ever thought about revisiting the franchise and doing like a Ginger Snaps 4 in space? Just a fun thing?
Do that? Yeah, that would be weird. We could do like a remake. It's perfectly right for a remake right now. Actually, Steve Hoban, who produced the 3 movies, who's a buddy of mine, he was very keen to try and get a TV series off the ground. So actually just prior to Orphan Black, which is a show that I made, I came, really, thanks. We tried to make it as a TV series, but and came very close, oddly, with not a terrific. It was really going to be very different than this because it was with the CW, and it was so it wasn't like this at all. And I was like, okay, but then they decided that I think that there would be a werewolf in the 2nd season of Vampire Diaries, so they were like, "Now we're not interested in Ginger Snaps," which is good. I think in the end that I didn't do a CW version of Ginger Snaps and instead made Orphan Black. So I don't know. Maybe, who knows?
That would be interesting though if it was rebooted somehow or it came out in a different version. Like Emily, would you be comfortable with watching someone else play Bridget?
Yeah, a lot more comfortable than watching myself, for sure.
Fair enough. And you guys were on CBC Radio today. I was behind the glass, so I couldn't see you.
Okay.
But you said something really interesting in that you mentioned Orphan Black, and you talked about how, in a way, it's almost like a companion to Ginger Snaps. What did you mean by that, John?
I meant, well, like I see so many things that I poached out of here and put in Orphan Black. Like, frankly, Bailey Downs and Pamela is pretty much Allison. And you know what? I think it's more about a feeling of just an ownership feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It was really, this was my baby. This was like the baby, right there. And then I don't really have that again. Like, I did a lot of work, and I shot a lot of stuff, and I shot another movie in between that you probably never saw, and did a whole shit ton of TV episodes before I came back and managed to find my own thing again. And it's very different when you're kind of doing something that that you were involved in the utter creation of, and are incredibly involved and passionate about, and then shooting somebody else's thing, right? So it's kind of, it really had that same feeling for me. And I don't know if there's similar themes, but I guess I don't know. I guess I've always thought about genre a little bit in the way of these kind of absurd premises of, like, werewolves roam the planet, or of human clones roam the planet, or whatever it is. That tonally, I think I see similarities to some degree as well. I've always had this strong idea of character. That character is extremely important, and you have to kind of believe, and you have to kind of, there's a kind of an emotional integrity that is important to the characters to make me believe that rubber suit lying on the ground is actually her sister. And so when I see, although mind you it was fairly dark in this print, or whatever we're watching, you see tears sort of like streaming down Bridget's face at the end, and she is so into that moment, it doesn't matter that that's rubber suit lying on the ground at all, And that's kind of, I think that's incredibly important. I also think with stuff like this, it's really, for me, I really want to be able to laugh. I really do, because I think people take themselves way too seriously, mostly. And I think if you can laugh at this stuff, I think it makes it easier for me to swallow the absolutely stupid premise. Don't you think? You get kind of where I'm coming from? So I think you buy the characters, you have some laughs, and you kind of go with the guy in the rubber suit. I don't know. That's my sense of it all.
Any other
Gratuitous
questions?
boob shot.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the relationship between Ginger and Bridget, and how core it is to the first movie? And how do you feel that Bridget's character developed in the second movie?
Good one.
Yeah, I mean, in the second one, she has to figure out how to live on her own without, because the whole childhood obviously is with her sister. She's so dependent on her sister, and they created this like isolated little world to defend against the horrors of society. So yeah, but I think Bridget realizes in the second one she can't really make it on her own. So she's sort of, but it's not like a conscious thing. So Ghost just sort of comes along and attaches herself to Bridget, and Bridget begrudgingly accepts her presence, because I think on some level she realizes that she just can't do it alone. So yeah, that's, I think, her psychological reality is.
Yeah.
Emily, what else have you done since these movies?
I did some teen comedies, another Cinderella story, and She's the Man, and I was on Mitchie's Inquest for quite a few seasons, and what else? Just like episodes of Supernatural.
Do people recognize you as Bridget when you're out and about?
Yeah, sometimes people do. It always really surprises me, but that's great.
You look exactly the same.
Actually.
People recognize.